the development of embryo.
Yes.
I don't know exactly how it's described in the Quran. Putting the moon is just like a stunt, kind of.
The question is, what is stopping you from being a Muslim? Do you have questions for me? Is there a specific thing you want to talk about?
Yeah, I've watched many of your videos.
Okay.
And you mentioned a lot like there are no contradictions in Quran,
Yes, I do.
and that is kind of like a proof. But maybe there are no
Kind of.
contradictions in like Game of Thrones book or Harry Potter. That doesn't like really
Where did
mean
I
that it's
say in
part
my
of God.
videos, because
Uh-huh.
the Quran has no contradictions, it proves it's from God? I never made that argument. But what I
Uh,
say,
yeah,
it's a criteria for a book to be from
okay.
God for it to have no contradictions. Do you agree with the statement?
Yeah,
So
that
it's
would
it's
be
a
that would be
requirement,
fair.
but it's not proof. I'm not saying just because a book has no contradictions, therefore a book is from the creator. But it is
Hmm.
very important to see that, look, if someone who's come from a illiterate Bedouin Arab 1,400 years ago talks about psychology, embryology, geology, and all of these things, it's not comparable to
Oh,
what you
just
quoted, which is a book of fantasy or something like that. But still, I'm not saying just
mhm.
because it has no contradictions, therefore it's from God. I
Okay.
never
Yeah,
said that. That
you
argument I
actually.
never made, yeah? I
Yeah,
never
yeah,
made that
yeah,
argument.
yeah. You actually played right into my cards by
Okay, no
saying
problem.
one specific thing. So
I,
about
I
like
didn't
the
know where to prepare. I didn't know where to
uh,
prepare traps for each other. I wanted to
yeah.
go
So
ahead. Yeah,
about
go
like
ahead.
the
Yes,
like the development of embryo.
yes.
I don't know exactly how it's described in the Quran, but I would expect it can be quite specific. But
There are two
the
places
truth
that are mentioned in
is,
the
the
Quran.
unfortunate truth is that people would know. Because people got killed. And sometimes when they were pregnant, so they would know how embryos develop. So how is this described in the Quran? What
Okay,
is
let me get your argumentation now. So what you're saying, you will know about the stages of embryology through people dying pregnant, and then you're cutting them open, and then you're looking at the stages of embryology. Is that what you say? So
unfortunately yes.
okay, so what you said there makes zero sense. I'll tell you why. Because if you were to cut the belly of a pregnant woman, how will you be able to tell which organ is which?
As I said, I don't know exactly what the Quran says about it.
No,
So
okay. Look, look,
I
you
just
made
like
an
obviously
argument,
like
Bob. I
growth,
just want you
growth,
to think about your
and
argument now, yeah? To think how ridiculous the argument is from a rational perspective. I will cut someone open, and I don't know the anatomy of a human being because it's 1,400 years ago. It's the 7th century. We don't know the anatomy of the insides of a human being. So if I'm cutting a human open and there is blood and pieces of meat, how do you know which one is which and which one is this and which one is that? And when you look at the human embryology and the development of it, when the baby is smaller, it's a blood clot, and then it becomes a piece of meat. So it's
it's
just
very small. Yeah.
it's gonna be another piece of meat if you cut someone open. See, we not know the stages of embryology by cutting a human being open. That's not how medicine works. So that argument doesn't work. And when it comes to what the Quran speaks about, it's very specific. It talks about the stages. يا أيها الناس إن كنتم في ريب من البعث فإنا خلقناكم من نطفة. It says it starts, you were a sperm, then you become a clot, then you become a alaqa, which is a clinging thing, which
Mhm.
sucks blood. And then the Quran goes into the description. So you can go into the Quran and then do some research on this issue if you want to talk about embryology. But the argument of cutting someone open doesn't work from a medical rational perspective. What else do you have, Bob, for me?
Yeah, I had a question about Surah 19, and
Yes.
then approximately from verses 30 to 40. So this is
Okay.
all Jesus
Speaking.
speaking,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. So in
I'm the
19,
servant of God. He made me.
mm-hmm.
He gave me the book, and
Yeah,
he
yeah, yeah.
made me a
Okay,
prophet, and he made me blessed
okay,
wherever I am. Yes, yes, yes.
okay. So in 1940,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not reading in English, but it's pretty much like we will inherit Earth and everything what is on Earth.
إنا نحن نرث الأرض ومن
Yeah,
عليها
yeah.
وإلينا
So
يرجعون.
what does it mean? Because like in the paradise, you are supposed to go to the paradise, and you are not supposed to inherit Earth. So what does it mean?
Well,
How
Earth is
how do
now.
we inherit
Well,
Earth?
paradise is now on Earth, so I don't see where the conflict is for you. Paradise is a different place that we believe is above, so it's a completely different location. So Allah is saying that everything will return to Him. Inna nahnu narithu al-arda means that things will return to Him. And if you finish the verse, it says wa ilayna that you will return to us. So the same verse talks about the idea of returning. So inheritance here means that everything will return to Allah, the one that created everything. Everything will come
So
back to Him eventually.
so the verse 40, it's not Jesus anymore speaking.
No, yeah, this is Allah speaking.
Ah, okay.
It's
So
Allah speaking.
okay, so from the verse
That's why it
30,
says it is we. It is we. It says it is
okay.
we. It doesn't say
Yeah,
I
yeah,
am.
but it could be like Jesus, meaning like
No,
me
no,
and
no,
other humans.
no, no, no,
Uh, that
no,
I got a little bit lost
no
when I
issues.
was reading these.
Totally fine. Nothing to worry about.
Hmm.
Anything else?
Yeah, putting the moon.
Okay.
Splitting the moon.
What is your question?
What? Okay, because like all the previous miracles, it was like always for some good purpose, and this one kind of seems like
Again, where you made built an assumption. What do you mean
okay,
that all the Americas for are for a good purpose? Where did you get this idea from?
like like healing people, rising from dead, even if you
Splitting the
believe
sea,
that, I'm not
okay,
sure.
or
Splitting the sea so they
okay,
could walk through, and this splitting the moon is just like a stunt, kind of.
okay.
It's
Moses turning his stick to a snake is not necessarily something that's for beneficial for the people, or his hand becoming lit and light is within his hand. That's another miracle that happened. I don't agree with this argument that all miracles need to be beneficial for human beings. The point of a miracle is what? From our description of a miracle is mu'jiza, something that other human beings cannot imitate or do, that Allah brings on the hand of a prophet in challenge when he's being challenged. So he's being challenged and he produces that as evidence that he's a messenger of God. That's the point of what we call a miracle. Point is not necessarily benefiting the people or not. The prophet and the messenger brings it as a evidence that he's a messenger sent by God. That, look, the evidence I'm not just a human like you is I can do this, which no other human being can do. So the point of the splitting of the moon is to demonstrate to the kuffar of Quraysh is that Prophet Muhammad is a messenger of God.
okay.
Anything else?
You also say that one of the miracles actually is the text of Quran itself.
Yes. And there's a video where
Okay.
I talk about that in detail if you want. It's
Yeah.
not too much
So,
detail.
are there like any new words that have never been used in the Arabic language before, or is it just the use of the words, like that? It's like the best
There are
poetry that.
many things. There are many things, and one of them is that almost every chapter of the Quran has a new word that was not used before, or used in a new way. So
Okay.
there is a video on my channel called Arab Christian Learns About the Miracle of the Quran or something like that. I would recommend you watch it, and you will see I will talk about the miracle of the Quran and how it's not being imitated and this and that, and what is the challenge. Because a lot of people think the challenge is a subjective thing. It's not. I give you the criteria of what the challenge is. There are certain things that are unique to every text, to every chapter of the Quran, that you're told to imitate and bring something like it.
Okay. And when it comes to being a prophet, so of course Quran cannot define what is a prophet if it was supposed to be brought by a prophet, right? So has
What
it
do you
been
mean by that?
described by some previous text, or was it like something that people just
A prophet and a messenger. A messenger is someone who gets revelation and delivers the message to the people, right?
okay.
A prophet is from the word in the Arabic language, nabi. It's from nubu'ah, someone who receives revelation from God. He's not necessarily commanded to deliver that message to the people, but he receives revelation, therefore he's a prophet, he's a messenger of God. Direct revelation he gets from the creator. A messenger is the one who's commanded to deliver the message to his people.
Okay. Were there any prophets between Jesus and Muhammad?
And no,
None between.
no.
Okay. What about all the other
Prophet
ones?
Isa alayhi salam and then Prophet Muhammad after him.
What about all the other ones? That
Before,
probably,
before.
let's say, didn't make it. So all these other messengers to other nations, which we never heard of, they were before Jesus, or
The prophets and messengers are sent to different nations in different times in different localities. Okay? This is an Islamic perspective. Allah Azza wa Jalla says in the Quran, وَإِن مِّن أُمَّةٍ إِلَّا خَلَ فِيهَا نَذِيرٌ. There's no nation except that we send them a messenger. If that nation is isolated from other people, then they require a specific messenger to come to them in order for them to get the message. You're talking about this line of messengerhood. We have in our tradition, Islamic tradition, that Isa alayhi salam came after him, Prophet Muhammad, to our locality, to our region, to the things that we know about. Now, whether in that period there was for other people, because now we're talking about different people, if there was for other people, other messengers, Allahu A'lam, Allah knows best. But in the locality, in what we know of, in the regions, Isa alayhi salam was sent in, Prophet Muhammad was the one after him. There was no prophets between Isa alayhi salam and Prophet Muhammad.
nobody between. Okay, all right.
Anything else?
So, sorry, I'm a little bit unprepared.
I don't mind. You can bring.
I just
Look. The thing.
stumbled. I just stumbled upon you live.
Yes.
So I was like, wait, I'll join. Yeah,
No
I
problem.
want to be more prepared. Do you do this like a weekly or every 2 weeks?
I
The
try
same.
to do it weekly, but I just like recently I've been having internet issues and things like that, so I'm having issues. But generally, I do it weekly. Yes, sometimes I might miss a week here or there, but generally, I try to do it weekly. I believe I've answered your questions that you have so far, isn't it?
Yeah. I need
Okay,
to prepare more.
no problem.
I just
Yeah, but
randomly
Bob,
came
look,
on.
Bob.
Next
This
week
is
I
not
can try.
about Bob. It's not about argumentation. I'm not here to just spend time just arguing about things for no reason. It's more. It should be a search for truth. What is the purpose behind you coming and asking these questions?
That's exactly it. Yeah. So I'm an
Okay,
agnostic,
okay,
and there are like just a few religions who worship one god. Okay.
okay, okay.
Obviously,
Do you believe
I cannot
Christians
be.
worship one God? I was talking to one of them just few.
Oh,
You were listening,
okay,
right?
yeah,
Do you
that's
believe?
another story. That's another
Okay, that's
story
another
with,
story.
with the
Okay,
Christians. Yeah.
okay.
So obviously I cannot be a Jew because I'm just not a Jew. So, and they are like very. It's not just a religion. It's like
Yes,
very
yes. So there's
race
only Islam for you there.
driven. I cannot be a Christian. Obviously, you have covered it more than enough.
Yes.
So maybe I don't know much about Sikhism. Like how much do they actually contradict Islam? Because they have like gurus,
Sikhism
you know.
is a mix of Hinduism and Islam, and they
Okay.
pick a lot of contradictory things from the Hindu position. One of the things is that everyone has his path to God, which is a contradiction that is impossible. They don't have a clear definition of God. They have this idea that everyone can have his path to God, meaning the Christians can have their path to God, but which God? They have different conceptions of God. How can all of them have the path to God when they have different contradictory beliefs? So they have this big problem. That's why you don't see them evangelizing much as well, because they have this idea that you can have your way as a Muslim to God. The Christian can have his way to God. This idea, liberal idea that is a mixture, mixing some things from Hinduism. And if you open their book, the scripture, there's quotations verbatim from the Quran that Guru Nanak took word for word from the Quran and put in his book. So it's not something that I would even bother investigating personally, but you can do if you want. But generally,
Mm.
the question is, why is stopping you from being a Muslim then? If you agree with all of this, then why is stopping you from being a Muslim?
Yeah, because it's a bit difficult because in the times of Prophet Muhammad, there were people who knew him, so they knew and they could tell, okay, he is trustworthy. I can't say it because I don't live in those times. So for me, I need to basically read the entire Quran and I need to understand it and recognize it as a word of God before I can accept Muhammad as the prophet, just
That's
based
fine.
on
You
the
you
book.
need to do some
Uh,
investigation and research. That's what you're saying, right?
uh, yeah, I need to. Yeah, I just need to
Okay.
believe
Have you
Quran
come
first because
across
they
what?
are.
Yeah. Have you come across what I say is evidences for the prophethood of Prophet Muhammad? So there are clear evidences that I mentioned, like the prophecies of the future of Prophet Muhammad, the nature of the Quranic literature, and I give you an advice to check the video that I was referring to understand more about this idea. The fact that the Quran talks about things in the natural world that was not known in the time. The fact that the Quran talks about history, things that were not known in the past, that was not known by previous civilizations that the Quran refers to, and the life of Prophet Muhammad himself. All of these are evidences to demonstrate that he's a messenger of God. So, from an evidence perspective, there's tons of evidence that the
Uh,
Prophet Muhammad is a messenger of God.
can you maybe refer me to or just quickly explain what is it about the like the salt water mixing
I don't
with
use
sweet
that as
water?
evidence. That is something that can be observed by any human being. Anyone who
Yeah,
travels can
this is
see that.
yeah, and it wasn't only this because like I've heard other people saying that
Yeah,
yeah, this and this and this Muhammad possibly couldn't have known
yeah.
because he was illiterate.
You have to
But
come to me with what I say, not what other people say.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, because
that's why you don't see me using this, right?
because
Because
he could
I'm
just
very
talk to
particular.
people, he could just
Yes.
talk to people, and they were like merchants
Yeah,
traveling
yeah. But
through, and
some
they would
things,
know
even
things.
even this idea, even I don't use it as evidence, but still, Prophet Muhammad was not someone who was traveling to different nations with people who were seeing the sea and this and that. He was a desert man, and he used to live in the desert and travel in the desert, right? He was away from the sea. But yes, you can make a plausible, rational argument that he could have gotten this information from someone because then it's an observable phenomenon. So I agree with you. That's why I don't use these weak arguments. There are people who use these weak arguments, but I'm not
Hmm.
using them. What I use is very particular, specific, that I know that Prophet Muhammad could not have known. But this is, as I said, is just one type of evidences. There are other things other than this natural phenomena that are also evidences. I don't even need to use any of that to show that Prophet Muhammad is a messenger of God.
Okay, so what would be the one ultimate evidence for you?
I don't different evidences for different people. Some people are more convinced with something. I don't think it's something called the ultimate evidence, but a clear thing is his life. Looking at his life, if you believe in God, which clearly you do believe in God, if you believe in God, it would be easy to tell whether someone is a messenger of God or not. A liar, biggest liar who claims he's a messenger of God, and the most truthful person who will be a true messenger of God, it's very easy to tell the difference between the two because they're polar opposites. So just looking at his life, what he used to do on a day-to-day basis, and how he engaged with other people is enough evidence for me personally that he's a messenger of God. But the
Yeah,
strongest evidence for me is the Quran not being imitable. No one can imitate the Quran. This is the biggest miracle for me personally because I speak Arabic and I understand the language of the Quran.
yeah. Actually, about like his life,
Mm.
it's a bit difficult for somebody who doesn't know about Islam to find some texts to read. So there is Quran, of course,
Yeah,
but
there is a book.
but there
There's a
are the
book called
hadiths, and everybody believes different hadiths, and is there some like
no.
collection
There's
of
just
them, or how does it work?
no, yeah. The hadith, there are books, collections of hadith. Not anyone brings his own hadith from his pocket or something. It's books of
Oh,
hadith that have the hadith within them. You cannot make up hadith as you go, you know? So there is a book, for example, you can read called The Sealed Nectar. The Sealed
sorry, we will.
Nectar. Yeah. Or
Okay.
you can email me. I can give you, there's a better book I can even give you if you like. Email me on the Muslim Lantern, because I don't, the name of the book that in my mind does not come to my mind right
Okay.
now.
Okay.
Email me
I
at
guess I
Muslim
found it.
Lantern. Yeah, you will find The Sealed Nectar, but
Al-Rahiq
I can recommend
al-Maktoum.
you.
Okay.
Yeah, Al-Rahiq al-Makhtoum, yes. Or I can recommend you something else as well. But this is a biography. If you want to read a biography, it's a book that is a
Uh,
biography of the Prophet.
okay. I will. Yeah. I will start. I will
No
start with
problem.
this.
No problem. My pleasure,
Okay.
man. And if
As I
you,
said, I'm not prepared today.
how is that? I'm not prepared too. I just go live, man. That's it. Like, do you
Yeah,
think
because
I'm?
I was just browsing on YouTube and I saw you
Yes,
live, so I was like, okay, why not?
that's okay. That's
But
okay.
yeah, I will try to prepare some questions to have them like a little bit more well structured,
Mhm.
and yeah, hopefully I will see you in a week or two.
No problem. I'm happy to have you on. Anyways, I'll let you go now. If unless you need
Okay,
something
okay,
else from
yep,
me, and then we
yep,
can talk a different time. Okay. Good
okay.
talking to you,
Thank you.
Bob.